This video came to my attention thanks to the live streams of 3 of my favorite YouTubers. I would like to share this video with you guys to illustrate to you a video with terrible arguments, but the framing of the arguments are incredibly persuasive. It works to a lot of people clearly, but that doesn't mean it's entirely correct. It's one of those videos that are actually very ironic in that the video's argument is that you should shut up about plot holes, but this video itself have, well, not really plot holes, but very glaring holes to poke in the arguments. It's not that the arguments themselves are individually bad. Okay, some of them are. It's that the way the arguments are framed that I find very interesting because it is deceptive, misleading, and I would love to illustrate it to you guys. But before I forget, like my last video, I want to thank my new patrons, Fona, Alejandro, Yosef, and Madman. You guys are fantastic.
Okay, guys, we gotta talk about that.
Yes, let's talk about the video starts off by illustrating that plot holes happen in a lot of online conversations, pretty much everywhere. The video author, Patrick H. Willems, complained that there are people in social media mentioning the plot holes of A Quiet Place, a film that I haven't seen myself, but I've seen a lot of people giving praise on it, I've seen a lot of people giving critiques on it. I don't really know where to put myself in that conversation because I haven't seen the film. But for now, that film is irrelevant. What is relevant is the way the author frames the entire argument. Here's a very fun drinking game. Take a shot every single time the author insinuates that you, the viewers, are a bunch of idiots.
But here's the thing. No one seems to actually know what a plot hole is.
Wow, that's an early shot. Actually, a lot of people know what plot holes are. They wouldn't be talking about them if they don't. It's just that your definition of a plot hole is not consistent to those people's definition of a plot hole.
And all those plot holes people complain about? They don't actually matter.
This is where Patrick painted a very broad picture of people's complaints regarding plot hole. He straight up said that all of those plot holes don't really matter. All of them. Not a single exception. All of them don't matter. And if you complain about them, close your mouths and shut up. And here lies the major issue with this video. Addressing the plot hole issue in one giant stroke when there are actually individual cases. And when I say individual cases, I mean it depends from film to film. To talk about the plot holes in one broad stroke is incredibly disingenuous. But if you are good with your communications, you can frame this disingenuous argument into something that make people go, I see your point. And that's why I find this video incredibly deceptive. It has terrible arguments, but really good framing that convinces people into an objectively wrong position. But before I illustrate that, let's define a plot hole.
A plot hole is a point in which a story breaks a previously established rule about its own universe. Basically, it's when a story contradicts itself. Okay, so here's what are not plot holes.
And let's stop right there. Nobody's saying that all plot holes are things happening off screen. It's just that some plot holes are things happening off screen.
In The Dark Knight Rises, we never see how Batman gets back to Gotham City. That's a plot hole.
Yes, yes, yes. That is a major plot hole in The Dark Knight Rises. But here's the thing, the author's framing of the argument is very clever. Notice how the plot hole guy said, we never actually see Batman going back to Gotham City. Not, we don't know how Batman is going back to Gotham City. With that, the author can easily respond with explaining what a montage is. Except the problem is, people are not asking to be shown Bruce Wayne going back to Gotham. They just need to know how. To illustrate to you guys why it is a plot hole, let me show you the situation in the film. In the film, Bruce Wayne is thrown into this place called the Lazarus Pit right after Bane broke his back. When he's trying to escape from the pit, Bane is taking over Gotham and giving the power back to you, the people. Bane has managed to take over pretty much a lot of the resources from Wayne Enterprises and has put a lot of Bruce Wayne's contact hostage. At this moment, Bruce Wayne also has major issues with Alfred, and thus, he is unable to get any sorts of help. So Bruce Wayne is in the middle of nowhere with almost little to no chance of getting help, and you're telling me that he is capable of finding a plane or a boat to go all the way to Gotham City in a very short amount of time. It is established that in the movie movie that the access to Gotham City has been completely destroyed. So how can Bruce Wayne get in there safely? Now the thing is, that plot hole itself can be explained in many different ways. Okay, in some ways. In The Dark Knight, it's been established that Bruce Wayne has contacts to smugglers, the people that allow him to escape from the building after capturing Lau in China. But the thing is, these respective smugglers need money. Bruce Wayne pretty much has nothing. How is he gonna pay off these smugglers to get him into Gotham? The main issue of this plot hole is that it could be better explained in how Bruce Wayne goes from one place into Gotham City. The movie could have just had a little bit of scene showing how Bruce Wayne finds a transportation all the way to Gotham. Just a little bit, that's all we need. Except the author takes it as, oh, you want to be shown like every second and every minute in how Bruce Wayne go back to Gotham City? No, we just need to know how, because it doesn't make any sense. You don't have to show every second, you just need to tell us how he goes back to Gotham City.
One of the earliest cinematic developments was the concept of montage.
Okay, that's enough. He then went on to explain how montages work, which I'm very sure you already know how it works. Montages are brief scenes that happen in films to highlight key moments in the passage of a very long time. A good example of this would be the "Where's Francis" scene from Deadpool. You don't have to show the specifics in how Deadpool tries to find Francis, but you can, however, make an entertaining montage out of it. The problem with this argument is that the Dark Knight Rises example wasn't a montage. It's just a very brief and sudden scene of Bruce Wayne finding his way to Gotham. In the video, you show the scene from presumably Ocean's 11. Danny Ocean can get through one place after another by walking or using taxi or using his vehicle because he can afford them. Bruce Wayne is at the state where he is completely devoid of resources. You didn't explain that part, Patrick, and therefore this argument is moot. Next point.
Movies tend to assume that the audience is reasonably intelligent, but I guess they're wrong.
Ooh, nice. Take another shot. Also, the fact that you have to explain what a montage is to the viewers when I am confident that most people already know what it is just shows to me that you think very low of movie fans. Reminding people of what a montage is perfectly fine, as long as you're trying to illustrate the following point, just like I did. But you didn't. You didn't illustrate how that point connects to the Dark Knight Rises example. You merely says, hey guys, this is what you call a montage. Even though it isn't a montage. Talk about condescending and misleading. Take another shot.
If movies showed us every single second that happened during the span of the story, they would be 40 hours.
Stop. Patrick.
No! This is Patrick!
Nobody says that films should show every second of a character's journey. Why the hell would people ask for that? The only reason why you assume that people are asking for this is because you are strawmanning them and you want to come off as the smart guy. Oh, you are asking for films to show every scene and be 40 hours long? What are you, an idiot? Of course the film would be freaking boring if it's 40 hours long and it shows everything, which is why nobody asked for it. This is how the author frames the argument, and the reason why it doesn't work is because the author uses a specific example and responds to it by a general explanation. The problem is the initial argument that the writer used isn't the argument that people are saying. This is a massive straw man, and the writer twisted it just a little bit so that he can come off as the clever one while not addressing the actual complaint that people have with the plot hole of The Dark Knight Rises. Also, a minor point, I know it's just a joke, but I need to point this out.
In The Dark Knight Rises, we never see how Batman gets back to Gotham City. That's a plot hole.
Yeah, that joke didn't land on me. What's so funny about punching someone because they say that a certain movie has a plot hole? Care to explain this joke, or should I just attribute this to how you feel about those people in general? You want to punch them in the face instead of actually have a discussion with them. And even if I get the joke, you repeat this joke about... Even if I can excuse a poorly thought out, poorly executed joke, I cannot excuse repetition. All those times that guy being punched and absolutely no twist, what I'm saying is, this joke needs a punchline.
Was the punching too aggressive? Maybe a bit?
Oh wow, so it does have a punchline. A very weak one at that, but a punchline nonetheless. Anyway, I'm done with my petty nitpick. Please carry on.
There are so many plot holes in A Quiet Place. Oh, it's such a great movie. I mean, like, why did they decide to have a baby? And why didn't they just move to the waterfall?
Those are all legitimate questions and you just straight up punch him in the face. The joke didn't really land for me, and even if it does, it only highlights that you are unable to take criticism.
This is the one that really drives me nuts. Movies are, for the most part, about human beings, or at least characters who think and act like human beings. And you know what human beings are not? Logical.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here. Human beings are not logical creatures. Let's add this to the counter, why not? If human beings are not logical creatures, can you please explain to us how we can achieve this technological prowess that allow us to communicate with each other while literally being in the other side of the world? I know that you're trying to say that human beings are not 100% logical creatures, but to say that they're not logical creatures entirely, it's just wrong. And even if they are 100% emotional creatures, this isn't a good argument at all. This is just you excusing bad writing and characters making stupid actions. I cannot believe that you can utter this with a straight face. Next point, please.
You know how in Star Trek, Vulcans live dominated by logic, and it's established that acting logically is at odds with acting human. So if everyone acted totally logically all the time, only making the most logical decision in any situation, no one would be acting human.
That's not what people are arguing. People are not arguing that human beings should be Spock. However, they are arguing that human beings need to be consistent. Let me show you an example. You have a guy named Phil. Phil is trying to destroy Nemesis, the Resident Evil 3 monster. Phil is well established in the story to be well versed in guns, is very calm at intense situations, so he went on to his inventory and used up his entire pistol ammo, even though he has a shotgun, he has loads of shotgun ammos, and he knows how to use it. Now, if Phil is established to be well versed in guns, but he used a pistol to take down a giant monster, that is him being an idiot and is inconsistent to the story, therefore a plot hole. However, if Phil is established to get panic easily, get emotional in sticky situations, and isn't really that good in guns, him using a pistol would be an idiotic move, but it's consistent to the character, therefore not a plot hole. What people are asking in films is for the characters to be consistent. If there are no consistency in how the characters behave, there would be no stakes in the story. If the film decides to make up new rules as they go along, there would be no tension. This rebuttal is completely moot because you're debating against an argument that nobody makes, but let's carry on regardless.
So if everyone acted totally logically all the time, only making the most logical decision in any situation, no one would be acting human. Thus, there would be no conflict.
Actually, let's stop right there because I know what you're trying to say. Nobody is saying that every human being should act logically in a story. We need to have humanity and emotions in every decision that our characters make. We need to have them to make mistakes, but they need to be consistent and they need to be in character. It's fine for characters to make stupid decisions that are driven by emotions, but you need to have your character be consistent. Tropic Thunder, for example, is full of idiotic characters. People love that film. I really like the film because the writing for the characters is consistent throughout the film.
There is a huge plot hole in Star Wars. I mean, come on. Why would the Death Star have such an obvious design flaw?
3 times you punched this poor guy so far, but keep trying. This joke will be funny after 6 million times. Also, that Death Star example wasn't a plot hole. It's just really convenient. But it's not the source of convenient that is totally unbelievable. Even our current year technologies have very obvious design flaws. If you don't believe me, try throwing a lit match into the gasoline tank of your car. The point that he tries to make here is plot conveniences are not plot holes, which is true. Kirk finding old Spock is incredibly convenient and contrived, but it's not a plot hole. I agree. My rebuttal to this is nobody actually says that it is a plot hole. It's just incredibly contrived. I agree, so let's carry on.
I mean, how does Benicio del Toro know the rebels' plans? Nobody told him. That's a plot hole.
That is also not a plot hole because, as he explained in the video, Benicio del Toro's character actually listened to the plan. A point that ER made on his video, but Mueller went on to correct him. That is indeed his mistake of not paying close attention, but for God's sake, don't punch them!
At least 50% of the plot holes that I see people complain about are things that are actually explained in the movie if you just pay attention.
I agree. There are 2 possibilities in why something is declared a plot hole. Either the viewer didn't pay close attention enough, or the movie poorly explained it, hence why it's more of a 50-50. The problem is, he doesn't believe that it's 50-50. He only says that he believes that he's 50-50. What he actually believes is that it's 99-1, as he smugly declares that you guys are just a bunch of idiots.
But I guess if you're too busy live tweeting about plot holes, you can miss some stuff.
Yep, you guys are all a bunch of idiots. Take another shot. The problem with this video is that he never actually considered the other half, which is that a film poorly explains the plot. If he did, then he would at least try to be fair to people and listen to their arguments. But as you can see, he has a little bit of bias with people who says the word plot holes. From this point on, Patrick went into a montage compilation of him describing plot holes after plot holes after plot holes of films. And then even plot holes on his own video?
Look, if you want to watch stuff this way, you can even find plot holes in this video. Why am I wearing sunglasses if I'm inside? I'm indoors in one shot and outdoors in the next, but we never see me go outside. Plot hole.
You seriously think that I'm gonna make arguments that petty? If I go for cheap shots, I can go all day long, my friend.
You can find plot holes or logic gaps in any movie, and if you want to, go right ahead. Just don't tell me that those are genuine flaws and problems and reasons that a movie is bad, because they're not.
Yes. Plot holes can be very good reasons why the movie is bad. Again, it depends from film to film, how significant the plot holes are, and how it destroys the overall story.
None of these things actually matter, because they're not what a movie is about.
I agree, these plot holes don't always make up these films, but you need to understand that these plot holes are merely symptoms in why a film is bad. Like I said, you cannot paint plot holes with a general stroke, because every film is different and they have different levels of plot hole problems.
So even though most people are using the term plot hole incorrectly, all of these complaints are rooted in the same thing.
Actually, I disagree. It's not always logic, it's consistency as well.
But movies aren't about logic. They're not equations. They're not proof.
I will stop you right there. Nobody has ever said that. Nobody has ever claimed that. Please address the actual arguments that people have instead of creating straw man out of them. Then again, you're being way too general in these rebuttals, so why would I assume that you be fair to what people say?
Remember that guy in your freshman dorm who would always try to guess the endings of movies so that he could prove that he was smarter than the people who made them?
This anecdote delivers absolutely no point other than you plot hole complainers are a bunch of idiots. Take another shot.
On the site movieplotholes.com, there are 7 plot holes listed for Die Hard. The first one says that the villain's plan is to stage a hostage situation so that the police will shut down power to the building, allowing them to access the vault. But since they would have already had detailed plans of the building, they could have just shut down power themselves, making the whole thing more simple.
I agree. That highlights incompetence from the terrorists. Not sure why they didn't thought about it.
Now, I know it seems impossible to watch movies wrong, but you're watching movies wrong.
Take a shot. He then went on to explain the actual story of Die Hard, and that Die Hard is about the struggle of one man thrown into an impossible situation. You see, Die Hard isn't a perfect film, but it is able to capture a great amount of tension to keep the audiences hooked from start to finish. It is one of my favorite action films of all time. The same thing cannot be said to The Last Jedi, which is a huge pile of mess. It is a poorly structured movie that has so many plot points after plot points after plot points, struggling so hard to gain screen time, leading to the film being too freaking long. The movie's main villain dies way too early, leaving me with zero interest in the next film, and leaving me with absolutely no tension and hype to the next film. The characters have potential, but they end up being wasted, and Canto Bite is one of the worst subplot in any movie that I have ever seen ever. And I'm speaking this as someone who is not a Star Wars fan. Also, as much as I love The Dark Knight, I just cannot bring myself to like The Dark Knight Rises because there are so many logical leaps that really took me out of the experience. You see, these plot holes can take people out of the experience. They're supposed to be immersed in the film, but they end up finding logical inconsistencies instead. And here's the thing, you can like a movie that still have many plot holes in them. I watched Black Panther 2 or 3 times, and even after I watched many people's criticisms of it, I still think that it's an entertaining film. But say what you want about Black Panther, it is not as divisive as The Last Jedi, which has so many glaring issues that deserves to be called out. And these glaring issues aren't just limited to plot holes. You can like these films just fine, but you need to admit that these films have problems that people take issues with. Anyway, I went on a bit too long with this tangent, so carry on with your point.
Why didn't John McClane do this? Well, because the whole point of John McClane is that he's a normal guy who makes human mistakes. If he did the perfect, most logical thing every single time, he wouldn't be the same character.
Actually, I would argue that John McClane does everything that he can as logically as possible. It's just that he is human and he makes mistakes. And no, he wouldn't be a Vulcan. Vulcans do think logically, but they are also capable of making mistakes.
Take Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. At the climax of the story, Harry reaches the Triwizard Cup, which turns out to have been turned into a port key that transports him to Voldemort. So the villain's whole plan hinged on Harry being the one to get to the cup first and win the tournament. But really, any random object could have been turned into a port key, and they could have sent him to Voldemort way earlier without all that hassle.
I agree. Any item can be used as a port key, and Voldemort only needs Harry's blood in order for him to get to his full form and start off his crusade.
But that doesn't matter. We're so invested in Harry trying to figure out a way to win, and then so surprised by the reveal of the port key and Voldemort returning, that to pick apart the logic of the villain's plan would mean totally disengaging from the story.
Actually, that's not always true. Sometimes a villain can be so overpowered that the tension being built on a film is based on contrivance rather than genuine fairness and skill. The issue that most people have is villains being unrealistically overpowered. As much as I love him, even Heath Ledger's Joker is a bit too overpowered. It doesn't disengage me too much from the story, but it does bother me a bit.
Like, sure, to an objective, omniscient viewer, it would make logical sense for Admiral Holdo to tell Poe Dameron her plan.
Actually, it would be consistent to her character because she wants to save the rebels as much as possible. There is absolutely no reason why Holdo shouldn't tell Poe her plans, or at least there aren't any good ones.
It would make logical sense for Admiral Holdo to tell Poe Dameron her plan. And then there would be no conflict and no drama.
In other words, the film needs Holdo to be stupid? You do realize that we can create character arcs from her not being stupid, right? It is possible if you are a good writer, which The Last Jedi evidently doesn't have.
And then there would be no conflict and no drama. Poe would never send Finn on a mission.
Actually, you can just make it to be Holdo asking Poe to send Finn on a mission. You will save about 10 or 20 minutes of scenes where Poe held her hostage, and people's perception of her would be so much better. Win-win, right?
Poe would never send Finn on a mission, and Finn would never grow, and
Whoa, stop right there. Finn would never grow, implying that he has any character growth at all. I don't see it. He's still the same Finn, he just have better skills, which he doesn't have time to develop when he's fighting against Phasma. Oh great, you're making me to expose another plot hole, and another reason why Finn's character arc doesn't feel satisfying at all. Phasma could have been a great character, or a rival figure, but like any other potential that this movie has, this character is a waste. Literally a waste.
Poe would never send Finn on a mission, and Finn would never grow, and Poe would never grow, and there would be no story.
So you're telling me that you cannot create a story of characters acting smart and logical? That only highlights your incompetence as a writer rather than the idiocy of the audiences.
And also, Holdo explains why she doesn't tell him the plan. She doesn't trust him. He just f***ed up and got demoted. She has no reason to.
Actually, the problem with Holdo not trusting Poe is that Poe asks a very basic question and she just dismisses him. In a lot of respects, the only reason why Poe acts rebelliously is because she refuses to tell him the plans. What I find very odd about Holdo's behavior is that despite being totally aware that Poe is a loose cannon, she doesn't consider for 1 second that not telling him the plan would cause him to be a loose cannon. My god, man, why are you making me finding more and more Last Jedi plot holes? We have enough videos of that already.
Again, if you think this is a plot hole, or you're annoyed because of the logic here, you're kinda watching movies wrong.
Screw that, just chug the entire bottle.
There's an episode of the show Community that imagined what a horror movie would look like if all the characters only made totally logical decisions.
Should we go check it out?
No. We should call 911 on my fully charged cell phone, lock the doors, and then stand back to back in the middle of the room holding knives.
And the conclusion is that it would be really boring.
Actually, you are wrong. Do you know why you are wrong? Because you haven't established how the villains behave. What if the villain shuts down the power? What if the villain is incredibly powerful and fast? What if the villain is actually one of the resident? There are so many things that you can do to make this boring horror movie scenario entertaining. It is possible to make a horror movie where the characters make smart decisions and still be fun. I mean, come on, man. You claim to be a professional, and yet you can't make a plot like that exciting. They gave you a template for you to work on and be creative, and yet you gave up immediately.
I am in no way telling you to turn your brain off or to not think critically about movies. Not at all. I'm saying you should worry about the things that actually matter.
Well, plot holes can matter. Again, it depends from film to film.
Take Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. I think it's a bad movie, and it has big old dumb logic issues, like why can Superman locate Lois Lane from her heartbeat but can't find his mother the same way?
Well, at least we are in agreement.
But those aren't the real problems with the movie.
Actually, yes, they are. They are merely small parts of the problem that, when being piled up, creates a much bigger one.
So as much as I enjoy making fun of some dumb logic gaps in that movie, they still don't really matter.
The plot holes. Remember the plot holes? So you're trying to tell me the supremacy, Snoke's ship, isn't powerful enough to penetrate the shield?
Yeah, that's a genuine issue that Angry Joe raised. I think you can—
In episode 2F09, when Ichi plays Scratchy's skeleton like a xylophone, he strikes the same rib twice in succession, yet he produces two clearly different tones.
You what?
And here's where Patrick went on tangent in how film criticisms used to be better back in the old days.
Why is it that in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s, no one really cared about plot holes?
Actually, they do care, as evidenced by people like Siskel and Ebert constantly talking about plot holes in their reviews. It's just that we don't have a place where we can communicate those plot holes because the internet doesn't exist. Right now, social media is much better. The internet doesn't start off the discussion of plot holes, they just merely amplified them.
Because I like driving myself insane, I searched back through Google year by year for references to plot holes. Until about 2007, they only appeared in movie reviews and forum posts. They hadn't gone fully mainstream yet. They hadn't been embraced by the public.
The reason why they are not embraced by the public is because the internet users in 2006 are not as big as the internet users in current year. They are also not as active as they are in current year. Plot hole arguments have existed for years, the internet just merely amplified them.
In 2010, it really began. Articles on Wired, The Escapist, Den of Geek, and Kotaku. Plot holes had officially crossed over into mainstream nerd culture. Their rise coincided with the arrival of listicle articles, and plot holes were the perfect clickbait. Nitpicks about popular things that could reveal things readers may have missed.
Yes, and they're still doing them right now. If your point is that they didn't do it back then, you are wrong.
Pop culture commentary from a nerdy fan perspective began exploding in popularity. And immediately, the types of videos that proved most popular were humorous analyses of popular movies focusing on surface-level nitpicks.
Okay, why are you blaring CinemaSins like that? I think you're going after what we call a brief jab. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say humorless analysis of popular movies focusing on surface-level nitpicks. CinemaSins. Except the brief jab doesn't really work if you keep blaring on it and keep making it visually obvious, especially when you unironically said it later on.
No one is really to blame for this. Okay, CinemaSins definitely deserves some of the blame.
That is one of the most confused execution of a joke that I have ever seen. Like, we get it, it's CinemaSins. The level of obviousness is so strong in this one. If you said it unironically, you don't have to make a brief jab on it again. It's like me saying, yeah, I think CinemaSins is a problem. CinemaSins. And speaking of CinemaSins, does anyone really think of CinemaSins as a review channel? I don't. I think CinemaSins is a nitpick channel. Not too much of a fan, but they can be occasionally entertaining. Anyone who thinks that CinemaSins is a bastion of film criticism is honestly an idiot, and perhaps they are victims of lobotomization. Although CinemaSins is the broke version, Cinema Wins, on the other hand, is much better. It's basically CinemaSins, but it's praising the film instead of nitpicking it, highlighting very small but brilliant fringe moments that a lot of us didn't really notice when we watched the film. It's the polar opposite of nitpick, and it's about appreciating the little details and also appreciating the larger picture. Easily much better than CinemaSins in my opinion, so go see Cinema Wins instead, because I actually legit learned a lot of things from it. He then went on to say that you can watch whatever YouTube videos you want, but you all need to stop talking about the plot holes.
So look, watch whatever YouTube videos you want, think whatever you want about movies, just please